Start recording. Cool. We're at week, oh my god, 18 now. This got extended more than I had expected. 0 to 1 is now going to be around 4.5 months, which means 2 more weeks, I think, after this. We'll keep it very open-ended, what needs to be done after this. After this, we need to cover a few pending topics, Next.js, middlewares, OpenAPI spec. But this week, I wanted to at least, finish checkpoint of project. We want to make sure that the Paytm project is something we can check box off of the curriculum, even though, there is a ton of things you can do from here. And that's what this week is going to be. It's going to be very hands-on. I have created a base repository. I have added issues in that base repository. We'll be solving those issues in that base repository and then in the process learning something new. Spoiler alert, the thing that you're learning today is about locking in databases, if you've heard of it, and transactions. We covered transactions a little bit in the old Paytm project, but today transactions will not be enough. We'll see how and when. But that's the brief of today and tomorrow. If we're able to complete this today, then tomorrow might be a little bit of CI/CD. Most probably we'll try to add CI/CD to this project. So that might be something else we learn. If we're not able to finish this today, then we'll just continue on this path. We'll try to cover as much of this as we can, but I'll try to restrict it to this week. If there is more that we want to learn, we'll learn either after 1-200 or in an offline video. So I would urge you to open Paytm 2 track. So this is a fresh track. Don't open the last one. The last one has very detailed steps to, build an application like this, a Paytm like application. If you came last week, you might have seen, what we were building. We built a little bit of it. I've added more slides to that specific Paytm 1 track, which is this one right here. So if you want, after the class, if you haven't already, feel free to go through these 20 slides and videos from last week. By the end of it, you'll have, UI UX that looks similar to this. You'll have a sign up page. It doesn't look as pretty. It's very easy to do that. You won't have any landing page, but again, feel free to add it. You won't have this page like you can add this page that shows you your portfolio. It'll be very hard for you to add a graph though, because we're not tracking that in a database. You will have this page. You'll have a transfer page that lets you deposit money into your wallet and see your INR balance over here and all the recent transactions. This has been done last week. That's pretty much it. We don't have any account information, any transaction information. A lot of this we'll try to add today. So that's what last week was. If you haven't gone through it, the architecture is mildly complicated. I will say a few things today that, might just go over your head. That said, today is meant to be very actionable. Okay, you opened a random open source project and saw a bunch of issues over there. For example, there are 3 issues over here and tried to solve it. You might not know everything. You might have to Google a bit. Even though all the solutions are here, I would still urge you, okay, as we are going through this project, try to go through these issues and fix them yourself. There are 3 issues. Fairly simple, slightly hard, simple. So simple. So this one's hard. Issue number 1 is really hard. 2 and 3 are fairly simple. If you want to do it independently, feel free to. That's, the best way to learn. If you want to do it with me, which you should, if you've not, coded a lot, if you're early in your career or early in your, programming journey, then just code along. If not, here is an open source repository. Here are 3 issues. Pick them yourself and try to fix them. In the end, see if the solution was the same. With that, I would urge you to clone this repository locally and maybe try to run it locally yourself. This is a project that's out there. It has pretty detailed steps as to how you can run it locally. So can you try to run it? I'll still open Q&A and answer any questions. But for the next maybe 5 minutes until 7:13, can you guys try cloning the project and running it locally, assuming this is a project you're seeing for the first time. And if you're already done, great. If not, then try to do it. I will also do it after 5 minutes. Until then, I'm looking at chat and trying to answer some questions. But this is how today's class is going to be. At every point, I'll share what needs to be done and would hope that you're able to figure it out yourself, because it's fairly simple stuff if you've gone through all the classes until now. All right. How to store information in a database to show graphs and dashboards? Great question. So here you need something called time series databases. Timescale DB is a famous one that lets you store time series data. The reason you need a time series database is because whenever you have a chart like this, you usually allow the user to do this. You allow the user to come to your website and select 1 month, 1 week, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. You have some timelines to support. So it's a good idea for you to cache their 1 month performance, their 3 month performance, their 6 month performance in a database, which is why it's a good idea to use a time series database. Can you create a single database that has, their balance entry at every day, let's say, and use that to give them 1 week, 1 month, 3 month charts? Yes. But that will be a lot of database interactions. So the best way to do it, and I know this because this was built at Backpack, because this is sort of, almost exactly the same, right? You have a chart and you need to allow the user to expand it as much as possible. Here also timescale is used, and it's the thing you want to use if you're doing, time series data at all. Cool. That's a good question though. The complete recording, this is uploaded already? No, they were recording it as I speak. Prerequisites. Well, you need to know a little bit of full stack. You need to know monorepos, you need to know Next.js, else you won't be able to solve issues most probably. Prisma you need to know. In bank-related applications, I've read it's not advised to store floating point numbers due to decimal binary conversions. Some data might be lost. How do banks tackle this issue? That is true. And if you go through the original Paytm track that we did around week 8, you never store decimals in the database. That happens in the blockchain as well. You never store, someone has. You never store that someone has, if this is your database, you never have 0.01 ETH stored. Or in case of Paytm, you never have 20.2 rupees stored in the database. You have 2020 stored in the database, and you have another field called decimals, which could be in your database, could be somewhere else, which represents, how much of these are decimal places and how much is, actual INR value. So if this person has 20 rupees and 20 paise, you won't store 20.2 in the database, you'll store 2020 in the database. That's how you get around, not storing decimals in databases. You should not. Precision issues will kill you, especially in an application like this, where, every cent matters. If a cent goes here or there, you're not compliant. I have a round for a 100K USD company. Can you help me with some guidance? Just ping Rookie and tell him this, I asked you to, and then just reach out to me through WhatsApp. Hello. Off topic. Can't see video in full screen. A lot of people say that. I think it's a local setting that you can flip. Let me reshare my screen, something like that. Sometimes that fixes it. But I generally would urge you to just, there's a local setting to flip. You'll find it in announcements. All right, we're at 7:12. So I'm also going to start to clone this project just as I would, a random open source project. First, I, go to their GitHub and try to clone the project locally. So I'm going to go to projects/100x folder and do a git clone and copy over this URL over here. This would clone the repository locally on my machine in this folder called week 17 final code. And I can open this in Visual Studio Code. That's what I'm going to do next. And since I am already very comfortable with monorepos, I know what the next step is. It's probably going to be npm install, but I'm still going to go through readme.md. I have cloned the repository. Next step usually is npm install. The third step is going to be, time consuming. You need a database if you need to run this application locally. This application does not have a Docker Compose. So, it doesn't start everything for you. This is a bad application. That should probably be another issue that you can try to tackle. Okay, add a Docker Compose that lets people start the whole project in a single command. But since this project doesn't have it, we need to start the database ourselves. And amongst the many classes we've gone through, I hope that you know how to start a database. Either you can go to neon.tech and get one, or you can run it locally by running this command. Docker run environment variable Postgres password is this. You can name this whatever password you want. Run it in the background in detached mode. Add this port mapping and run the Postgres image. This also we have done a few times now. So I'm hoping it's, self-explanatory what this Docker command does. I already had this running before the class. So let me kill the container that I had and then restart the Docker container. Now I have a fresh empty Postgres database running locally, the password to which is my secret password. You can run the same command if you have Docker. If you don't have Docker, you should go to neon.tech and grab a database very quickly. We've done this many times, so I'm not going to recover it. Given these three steps are done, npm install is done, I was able to start Postgres locally. Next step is, and this also you'll find very commonly across projects, is that there will be .env.example files in a lot of places. A lot of times not in a lot of places. Most of the times it's just in the root folder. But in our case, this .env.example file is present in a few places. Let's look at where it is. If I copy this, press Command P, it lets me explore all the files. And then if I paste or type .env.example, you will see it opens one file over here. If I try that one more time, .env.example, it opens another file. So this .env.example is present in a few places. Harkiyat, what is .env.example? We know there is a .env file. We have in the past seen a .env file where you store your secrets. Why would one create .env.example? And the answer is, you never want to commit .env to your project. You never want your project has a .env file that is present on GitHub. You can put a .env.example and push it to GitHub. We have done it. That is why I'm able to see it. If I open GitHub, you will see it has a .env.example in packages/db. .env.example. It is a example environment variable file. Okay, bhai, this is the structure of the environment variable file. Change it according to your own needs. So when you clone the project, the first thing you should do is copy all the contents from here into a real .env file, or the .env file that you will create yourself locally. The reason you don't want to commit this to GitHub is because you might put, the real secret over here and then push this to GitHub by mistake, and then everyone can read your secrets. So you will never change .env.example and put anything here, because the code will never pick your environment variables from here, which is why you put some dummy credentials here, and whoever is cloning the project creates a sibling .env file. By sibling, I mean they should be present on the same file root path. And then you can copy over the secrets, and if you want to change them, feel free to. I'm not going to. But yeah, that's the standard step you'll see in a lot of places. Okay, you have to first copy over .env.example to .env. This is present in two places. So let me go to the other one and copy it over as well. The first place where I've copied this is apps/userapp/.env.example. The other place I'm going to copy it from is packages/db/.env.example. So this file right here. Copy the database URL from .env.example and paste it in .env. Get used to this. This is very common whenever you're creating a project of your own as well. Make sure you don't put any secrets in .env. It by default won't get committed to GitHub also. Create a .env.example, put the secrets there, and then let users change them. This is the correct Postgres URL for me, because when I started Postgres locally, I started it with Postgres password equal to my super secret password. And that is exactly what I've put in my Postgres string. If you got one from neon.tech, then you can copy over the connection string from, here. So you can go to the specific database you started, click on the eye icon here, get the whole Postgres string, paste it over here. That's step number 3 or 4 or whatever, to replace all your secrets. Next step is to migrate the database. Right now, I have a fresh database. It does not have my users table. It does not have all the other tables that exist in DB packages/db/prisma/schema.prisma. this is what my database schema looks like right now. There is a users table. There is a merchants table. Feel free to ignore for now. There is a on-ramp transactions table. We'll see what that does, but there are a few entries here. There's a balance table as well. Okay, what is this user's balance maybe? I need to put all of these tables in my Postgres database, for which I need to, if I go to readme, what does it say? I need to migrate my Prisma database, or just call the migrate command on Prisma. Prisma will hit my database and actually create the tables over there one by one. So if I go to packages/db and run npx prisma migrate dev, for me it worked, and for you if it did not work, you most probably have the wrong database URL over here, or you're not able to connect to neon.tech because a lot of Wi-Fi's aren't able to connect to it. I've seen that in the past. One of these two things. So try to fix this. I will do a poll over here to see how many people are we good to go. Am I going slow or fast? I don't know. Are we good to go, guys? Oh, sorry. This is the wrong poll. End poll. Go back. Are we good to go, guys? %81%. That's pretty good. Considering this is, voice lag. Right. There are a few questions, happy to take them. But let's proceed a bit, and then, I'll take a breather at maybe 7:30. Let's proceed. Let's try to start the project locally. npx prisma migrate dev migrated the database. How do I know my database has been migrated? I can actually go into the container, and you don't have to do this, but just to show you, okay, it has. I can go into my container by running this command. I can run psql-u Postgres. I can run /dtx semicolon, and it shows me 5 tables that have been created, which basically means my migration has succeeded. The other thing that is being mentioned here is npx prisma db seed. This is something we haven't discussed at all. Let me take you through what seeding a database means. It basically means that when the user starts the application, their database is completely empty. There are a bunch of tables here, but there is no data in the users table. There is no data in the balances table. So it's a good idea to seed some data in there, to put some dummy data in there, so that whenever the user starts the application, they're able to go to the website, visit it, and sign up, sign in, do a bunch of things. So the way to do that in Prisma is that you can create a prisma/seed.ts file. And if you look at it, it's fairly simple code. It says prisma.user.upsert, which means, either insert, or if the entry already exists for this specific number, then update that entry, because you might run this again and again and you'll face errors, if you just do a create over here, because first time it's created, second times it'll give you a conflict, a user with this number already exists, which is why prisma.user.upsert. Upsert means create or update. If it's already there, then update. If it's not there, then insert. Where number is this? So there is a dummy entry for a user with the number 11111111 like this, and the password Alice. So there is one dummy user in the database, and we've also created a dummy balance for them. So this balances table will also have an entry. This users table will also have an entry for this specific Alice user. We also have added some on-ramp transactions, which very soon I'll share what those are. But if you went through last week, this should be straightforward. If not, that's fine. I'll share what this is. We also create one on-ramp transaction for this specific user. We are seeding some data. We do the same thing in app.100xdevs.com as well. If you go to the CMS repository, you will see prisma/seed.ts puts in a bunch of dummy users, puts in a bunch of dummy courses, and then, relates users to courses. Actually, it doesn't do that, but something else. What does it do? Create some content in there, create some videos in there, so that you have something to see when you run the CMS repository locally. What is the CMS repository? This is the repository that has the code to this website. So when you run this website locally, by following the steps mentioned here, you will see some dummy courses, you will see some dummy users, and all of that logic is again written in the seed.ts file here. So common file that you create to seed data. I've done the same thing. I've created another user called Bob. Very similarly, has a number and has one transaction, has some basic balance. The key thing to keep in mind here is this person has 20 rupees. I repeat, he does not have 2000 rupees. They have 20 rupees. We don't store decimals in databases in a financial application, which is why I haven't stored 20, because if the user had 20.2 rupees, now I can just store 2020 versus storing this is a big no-no in a financial application. You should never store decimals in a database. Why, Harkirat? For precision issues. It might happen that whenever you get this entry, you might get 20.1999999 like this. And then, some user is missing some money, which is not great. So you never store decimals in a database. All right. That's pretty much what this file does. And if you want to put all of this database in the DB, the command to run is npx prisma db seed. And as you can see, it created 2 user entries for me and a bunch of other, balance entries. This is good because now I have an application which when I run locally, I will have some user data in there. I can sign up, I can sign in. So the last step to start the project is you can go to apps/user-app and run npm run dev. And if you open localhost 3001, you should see an application like this. You will most probably not be logged in. I am logged in because, I was trying this in the past. Let me log out. If you were logged out, then if you go to the landing page, it should automatically redirect you to the sign up page. And if you remember, we had already put the Bob user in there. If I go to seed.ts, there's a Bob user and an Alice user. What is the user ID of Alice? It is these one number 10 times. So I can use that. What was the password? It was Alice, ALICE. If I click on sign in with credentials, it takes me to a dashboard. It's a fairly empty dashboard right now. Home doesn't show you the portfolio value. Transfers, this shows me some value. It shows me my balance. It shows me I have one on-ramp transaction. It also lets me do another on-ramp transaction. I can put 300 rupees from, let's say, Axis Bank or HDFC Bank if I want by clicking on the add money button. Transactions is also empty. This is step 1. This is step 1 of, any repository, running it locally. How many of you were able to do it is the question. Let's see where you stand. Were you able to run the project locally? This is a simple project. Doesn't have too many applications. This will, get more and more complex eventually, but 75% were able to run it. Cool. 3 minutes, I'll answer some questions. 7:30, we will restart. After this, since a decent bunch was able to start the project locally, there are issues that you have to tackle one by one. This is the first issue. On-ramps isn't complete yet. So I'll take you through a little bit of what on-ramps are and how to finish this feature, but you can try it yourself, target it yourself, try to do it yourself. There are solutions at the bottom, but maybe don't look at them. Let me look at Q&A for the next 3 minutes. Recap. Bcrypt mentioned. There's no mention of it in package.json. Okay, then add bcrypt to package.json, right? Just go to the DB folder, user app cd cd packages db npmi bcrypt, and then do your thing. Q&A. Bcrypt. How were you able to design schema Prisma models? Is it a practice or is there a website you copied from? It is practice. Every website, the only thing that is difficult when designing a schema is how things are related to each other. If you have a many-to-many relationship, one-to-many relationship, this part right here, that is the only difficult thing. It comes from a lot of practice. Eventually it becomes fairly, simple to understand. A user will have a bunch of transactions and every transaction will have a single user that it's for. So, this is a one-to-many relationship. So as time goes by, you understand relationships and build it yourself. I don't copy it from anywhere. Docker is still pulling. Yeah, it's a big image. I already had it. So this project will keep going on for some time, or is this the last week? Then we would carry forward. This is the last week. Wherever we reach. we reach, and then from next week 1 to 100 will start a little bit, and we'll probably do WebSockets, bunch of other things. Yeah, this is the last week. npx is my db seed. In Javed, can you run npm install? If you're facing issues while seeding, try running npm install ts-node at types/node. Try running this in the db folder. 1 more minute, then we'll proceed. After login, it's redirecting back to API auth callback credentials. That probably means you have some error on your server. Look at the logs on the server. You might see, some database error most probably. Aren't we building the whole application? We are, but we already built the first part last week. The checkpoint that we're at right now is where we reached by the end of, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Where we reached by the end of last week. So by the end of last week, all of this we covered in class. These I've added later on. I haven't covered it in a class, but they're fairly straightforward. And the last slide, the final code base of last week is the starter code base of this week. All right. So once I .env.example recap, it's a very simple thing. I'll just quickly recap and then we'll move on. But again, after the class, feel free to go to the video. .env.example is where you put all of your secrets, whatever you want to put in .env. Whenever you're committing to GitHub, you put that in .env.example. If this changes in the future, if you add, another JWT secret in here, Harkirat, you will also put that here. Okay, by JWT secret equal to random secret. And this you will commit to GitHub. This you will keep locally so that, no one knows your actual secret is Harkirat. A lot of times, you have to connect directly to the production database. So you might replace this with, prod db URL. And if you by mistake commit .env, then, everyone on GitHub can see your production database, which is why, .env.example is what gets committed. .env is what remains local. All right. With that, let's move on to the first issue. Let's understand the first issue. It says finish on ramps. It says, Harkirat, this page opens and you see all of your existing on-ramp transactions. Firstly, what is an on-ramp transaction? What does on-ramp means? It means you're ramping money from a bank account to your wallet. If you go to Paytm, I don't know if Paytm has a wallet anymore, probably does. But if you go to Paytm and you click on add money and then it takes you to a banking page, you click on submit and then, the money gets credited into your wallet. This balance of 200 rupees came because I received INR money from an Axis Bank. This is what's called on-ramping. It's probably not the best term. It's a crypto native term. In the Web2 world, this might be called a, bank transfer. The point is, for an application like this, you want to allow the user to, put in an amount, select a net banking card, things like these. And whenever they select it, click on add money. They should be taken to axisbank.com. They should finish their transaction over here. And then axisbank.com should tell us, okay, bhai, they have submitted 200 rupees. Please credit that money into their account. Let me restart the application locally. But the problem right now is, okay, this button does nothing basically. It's a very dummy button. If you've already looked at the code, and if not, I'll take you through it. The code simply says, okay, bhai, when you click on the add money button, say, take the user to HDFC Bank. It does nothing else. It does not add an entry to the on-ramps table. If you look at the schema of on-ramps, what does it say? Okay, by anytime the user wants to on-ramp, anytime the user clicks on this add money button, an entry should be created here. They should see something here. Okay, you started a bank transaction. Might not have succeeded, but you started it. Its initial status might be processing, and eventually it might reach success or failure based on whether or not the transaction succeeded. But when you click on this button, you should see an entry over here, a processing entry over here. That doesn't happen right now. If you click on the add money button, let's see what happens. Let's search for add money throughout the code base. When you do, you will see it takes you to the add money card.tsx. And all of this we have created in last week. So some of this in video, some of this in the slides, but all the steps to write this yourself are already there. This add money card component is what gets rendered over here. How do I know? There is a text input over here. There is a text input over here. There is a div over here that says bank, and then there is a select. So we need to make sure that whenever the user clicks on add money, we create an entry for them in the on ramp table. That is what we need to do next. Can you try this yourself? Maybe take 3 minutes to try this yourself. You have, the button. You have what happens when you click on the button. Right now, it just takes you to a redirect URL. But we should do, something, await some backend request over here, something we should do so that an entry is created over here for a processing on ramp payment. Don't set it to successful, but you can set it to a processing. The user started a transaction at the very least. 4 minutes, 7:39 I will code it. But until then, I will look at Q&A if there is any other specific issues. Try to code it yourself. The solution is here. I'm trying my best to not handhold now and, try to do it yourself. In the end, I will handhold. All the solution is here, but don't look at it just yet. All right, going to look at Q&A. Do we get certificate? Yes. Continue the approach for every upcoming class, like a new open source repo and issue. Let's see, we'll do a poll. Did not able to speed because of that error. That's fine. You have time. 4 more minutes. JWT description error. Most probably you don't have a .env file in user app, or you don't have JWT secret over here. So make sure your user app has a JWT secret in the .env file, or the location of the .env file is right. Getting this error. This action with HTTP post is not supported in nextauth.js. I've seen this. I don't know where, but try to debug this. I've seen this. You're missing something very obvious. This action with HTTP post is not supported by nextauth.js. No idea. But it's something very simple and obvious. I've seen the exact issue and it got fixed in 1 second when I googled it. Without running npm express my seed, I can see the data in the DB. How? You cannot. That sounds, unless your DB was stale from last week, maybe you have last week's data in there. Oh, it also might happen that when you run migrate, it automatically runs seed as well. That might happen. So you maybe when you run migrate, seed automatically gets run, which is why you see the data there. Vercel is, every cloud provider will do verifications after a point when they reach a scale. So not much you can do. Go through verifications, else Netlify. Okay, 2 more minutes, then I'll code. Nimesh, run use npm, don't use yarn. Failed. Anonymous attendee. You have a very restricted machine. It's not letting the Next.js application get the port 3001. So run sudo. That should do it. Use sudo when running the command. So run sudo npm run dev. When and how is instruct for DSA? I totally forgot. Tuesday and Thursdays live classes by an instructor working at Google, all that jazz. I'll share details on Discord. But there's a demo class this Tuesday. Invalid package dependency. What does seeding mean? It's like having data, dummy data testing. Exactly. You're seeding data. You're putting in dummy data. You can use them anonymously. All right. Cool. I think it's time for me to code this now. What do we need to do? We need to just put an entry in the database, right? That is what most of what full stack development is. Okay, the user will come to your website. The user will click on a button. When they do, a request will go out to your server, and then your server will do some validations, do some checks, and then eventually put data in your database. This is a very common thing that you do in full stack applications. It's exactly what we have to do here as well. Okay, bhai, the user came, clicked on a button. We need to run some backend logic. So what is the first thing mentioned in the slides? Create a new action in lib/action/create on-ramp transactions.ts. Harkiyat, what is an action? We have discussed in Next.js. It is just another way for you to define a function that can be called either on a client or a server. For all practical purposes for this class, feel free to assume it is similar to creating an HTTP endpoint. very thin line as to what it is, because in the end it does work via HTTP. But again, go through the Next.js class to understand what this does. For now, just take off it as okay, you're writing a function, you're exporting a function that you will call when this button is clicked. Only under the hood, this function gets called on the server. That is what server actions mean. But you can also just create a backend endpoint to do it. You don't have to create a server action. Both will do pretty much the same thing. Cool. So this is the place where you should create it. Feel free to change the location. User app lib, create a new folder called actions, create a new file called onRamp or create onRamp transaction.ts. Export a function here, create onRamp transaction. That will take what as an input? What does the user send us when they click on a button? They tell us, I want to send this much amount from this specific provider, which is like Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, so on and so forth. So these are going to be the inputs. And given these two inputs, where do I need to put a database entry? I need to put a database entry in the onRamp transactions table, which is this table right here. So number one, I need to extract who this user is. I need to check what the ID of the user is. Harkirat, then can you take user ID as an input as well? And you're sorted. No, you shouldn't do that. This is a security vulnerability. You should never take user ID as an input, because then when whoever is clicking the button, they can send a wrong user ID to the server. So you should extract the user ID from next auth by using get server session, and you should pass the auth options to it. Why, Harkirat? Next auth class we have covered this. This is how you get the current user who's sending the request on a server. Const user ID equal to session.user. Harkirat, why the question mark? Well, let me remove the question mark. Now, why do I not see any errors? I would have hoped to see any type errors. Hold on. Why is this any? I would have hoped for this to have a better type. Pretty sure it does. I don't know. But okay, I will proceed for now. We'll fix this later. You can even great. You don't need question marks over here. What is question marks? I say it's something called optional chaining, but okay, let's ignore for now considering we don't need it. If user ID doesn't exist, if the user wasn't logged in, if this is some, erroneous request that's coming in, then simply return to the user a message that says user not logged in. But if the user is logged in, then create an entry in import Prisma from @repo/db/client. Harkirat, where is this coming from? Again, we've covered last week. All of our Prisma logic exists in this specific package called packages/db/Prisma. So packages/db. So everything we import, including the Prisma client, comes from here. Prisma.onRamp transactions.create. And then, you can just pass in the data that's needed. And then you can return to the user a message that says onRamp transaction added. This is sort of what was expected from this part. You let the user hit a backend endpoint that lets them add some data. Now, what is that data? Well, user ID will be the user ID. Amount will be amount into 100, because the user might send you, with decimal endpoints, or you can store amount as such. And when you are sending the request from the front end, when you are sending this request, the amount that you send, you can multiply by 100 over here. So it really depends on where you want the amount into 100 to happen. Ideally, just do it on the client. So amount can be stored as such. Status processing, because we have just started the onRamp transaction. The user has just reached the HDFC Bank page. They haven't yet completed the transaction. So it's currently processing. What all entries do you need? Date or timestamp, start time, when the transaction was added. What else do you need? Start time, amount, provider, whether that's HDFC Bank, or whatever the input was here, and then token. Now token is going to be a little tricky. If this is the first time you're seeing the Paytm track, ignore what a token is. If it is not the first time, then you might remember what a token is. Or whenever you're creating an on-ramp transaction, whenever you are letting the user, select, go to the slides. Whenever you're letting the user click on this add money button, before the user goes to netbanking.hdfcbank.com, you need to tell HDFC Bank that I'm sending someone your way for 200 rupees or whatever the amount is, so that the bank knows that someone is coming to do a transaction. The bank will return you a token. Okay, bhai, give that user this token, so I know this is the 200 rupee transaction that you've told me about. That is what this token over here is. But if you don't understand this, you have to go through the last week's video and understand how you communicate with banking APIs. In the real world, this would be a real token that comes from a banking server. Since we don't have a banking server, I'm just going to set it to a random string for now. Math.random gives you like a random string. You probably want to convert it to a string using toString, because you're passing it here and Prisma will complain if you give it a number. This returns you like a random number between 0 and 1. There are other ways to create random strings, so feel free to use them. Either way, you create a token, you create this entry, and that's what was expected from this part. Of course, in the real world, this token will come from, a fetch request to await axios.get https://api.hdfcbank.com/get token, for this specific amount, so on and so forth. This token should ideally come from the bank. Since we don't have a banking API right now, we're simulating there is a bank that will send our users to. I just created a random token. And that's it. This is the backend logic that was supposed to be written. Now we need to write the front end logic for it, which actually, calls this specific endpoint. The one thing about server actions is whenever you're creating a server actions, put create use server at the top, put use server at the top, so that, the front end knows this exists on the server. This needs to be called on the server. If you don't add use server here, this will get called over here. It will try to do a Prisma something from here. It doesn't even have Prisma, cannot connect to the database. So, you'll see an error. So make sure you have use server at the top of every action that you create. Now let's try to call this. If you go back to add money card, if I await create on-ramp transaction, I need to pass in an amount and the bank or the provider that I'm using. I need these state variables at the top now. Until now, I did not need what the user was putting in this entry, what the user was putting in this entry. But now I do, because I need to send them to the backend. So I will need to introduce two state variables, amount and provider, which is going to be initialized to HDFC Bank. These are the two hard-coded supported banks for now. And the very first one is what we store in this redirect URL where the user goes by default. And then the very first one is also what we'll use as the provider, because when the user comes to the website, they see HDFC Bank here by default. And if they change it, we want both this state variable and this state variable to be changed. Whenever the select, which means, this select returns a callback and tells you the provider has been changed, you should change the redirect URL. We're already doing it. You should also change the provider. Okay, bhai, this is the new person or the new bank. That's the provider now. And lastly, the amount again is as simple as amount of value. The thing that this guy returns you, if you go to text inputs, it returns you the string as such. We created this ourselves. So depends. We can also return, an event over here, but we just return a string. If you look at it, it says input on change equal to call the on change with e.target.value. So what you return back to the user, what the user gets here in this value is a string, which is why doing set amount is enough to populate this state variable. Whatever code I've written in the past 2 minutes is just for populating these two state variables, amount state variable and the provider state variable. Let me quickly show how to do this and then I'll do a poll. But let me run npm run dev. It's already running. I see a very big error. Alice, sign in. I reach the dashboard. If I go to transfers now, gives me an error. It says on click await without async. Let's see, need to put an async here. Create on-ramp transaction needs to be imported, and amount needs to be multiplied by 100. I totally forgot that. Left side amount, let's initialize amount to 0. So, it's a number. And provider, what is the error? String or undefined. So let's make this or empty string so that the type of provider becomes string and there is no type errors over here. Now, if I save this, if I go back here, if I put an amount of, let's say 300 rupees and select whatever, Axis Bank or HDFC Bank, doesn't matter, and click on add money. Let's see what request goes out. I go to the network tab. A request goes out to /transfer. It fails with the 500 status code. We'll see why, but it's sending in the right inputs. It's sending 30,000, which is, 300 rupees and HDFC Bank as the inputs. I'm sure there's some error in the backend, which is why we see this. It says user ID cannot be a string. It needs to be a number. So if I go back to create on-ramp transaction, I need to make sure the user ID that I'm passing is converted into a number, else Prisma will give you a runtime error. Prisma will say, okay, bhai, I don't know what user ID with 1 is, because user IDs are numerical. So you need to just convert it to a number, which you can do in TypeScript by calling number of that specific thing. Now, if I try it one more time, let's see what happens. If I click on add money, I see a bunch of requests. And I also see finally that I'm able to reach netbanking.hdfcbank.com, which probably means, it did work. If I go back and refresh, as you can see, I see another, transaction over here. If I add another 20 rupees, click on add money. And then if I go back, I see another transaction for 20 rupees over here. Notice the balance hasn't updated. I repeat, the balance is still 200 because these are pending. I have reached this page. I have not, put any over here. Okay, credentials over here succeeded. My webhook hasn't been hit, which is why this is still 200 rupees. But I see a bunch of transactions that are being created. That was the first part. We still have a bunch to do, but let's see how people are doing, and then we'll go from there. I'll do a quick recap of this also after this, but did we understand the first issue? Seems like it'll take us 2 days to fix this 2 issues. Cool. 78%. Okay. Anyways, it's close to break time. Let's do an 8-minute break. I'll look at Q&A until then. The things that we have to cover after this include adding P2P transfers. P2P transfers mean standard Paytm transfers. You can send money to someone else's phone number. They can send money to you. You have this wallet balance, right? 200 rupees. You can you should be able to send them to other people. They should be able to send them back to their bank account, so on and so forth. So the next thing we have to cover is how can you send money to them? Cool. With that, I'll open chat now for the next 8 minutes, and then we'll go from there. Any questions? Recap everything, able to see it. Okay. I will recap everything very soon. But again, slides cover everything. So we're just on slide number 2 right now. First, classes are clear to me until Next.js Postgres introduce. I'm able to learn from the recorded ones. Will the videos lifetime access? I think there are 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Pretty decent access. Some TypeScript error. TS node. Yeah, try doing npm install ts-node Sohail. And npm install. Try running this command. npm. I'm sharing my screen, right? Yeah. So npm install at types/node and node. Try running this specific command. That should probably fix it. In the UI folder. So go to packages and /UI and then do it here. There. Why are we not converting value to number? It is string by default, right? Value to number. Let's see. Where are you seeing value? Oh, we should. Yeah, you should do it. So basically, as you can see, it's also giving you a type error, right? So you can just do this. Probably should do this. Yeah. What else? Chatra plus Jala. Can you use npm? I think you're using yarn or something. Cool. Do a quick recap from the top. What did we do today? We were trying to go through an open source, like it's a self-created open source project. It's not an open source project, but you get the idea. Like a fresh project that you have some idea about. If you've gone through last week's track, if you've not gone through last week's track, then this is, a fresh new project for you, Paytm project part 2, which, looks something like this. You sign in and you see a page like this where you can see all of the transactions that you're doing, that let you put money on the account and also let you see the balance that you currently have. Given the starting endpoint, there were a few issues to fix. If you open the issues tab over here, the very first issue was this is the very first issue that we solved. No entry is being added to the database whenever an on-ramp transaction is being initiated. Whenever the user clicked on this, they were sent to HDFC Bank page, but recent transactions did not include that transaction. So the first thing was, by add a processing transaction over here. There is a transaction that is currently being processed. And whenever the bank tells us in the future, the processing has happened, then you can increase the user's balance. Then you can change the status code to success. We should also show the status code somewhere here. It should say pending or should say approved, whatever. But the entry wasn't even being made. That's what the first issue was that we just tackled. So if you look at how we tackled it, it basically was first creating a backend action that gets the specific user. This is the user that is trying to do this specific change or, create an on-ramp transaction. If the user doesn't exist, tell the front-end user doesn't exist. If the user does exist, we randomly generated a token for them. You shouldn't do this. Ideally, you should hit net banking, whatever the provider is that you're getting as input, be it HDFC Bank or, the other one, Axis Bank or whatever bank you support. You will hit some of their APIs. They will give you a token and then you will store that in your database in the on-ramp transactions database. Let the user know you're good to go. And then call the action on the front end, just called create on-ramp transaction here on the front end. It's pretty much all we've done until now. This was a very simple issue. And now as you add more and more money, you will see pending transactions over here. You will not see your balance go up because, the bank hasn't yet told you, okay, the user has been able to do the transaction. But we'll see how to do that. That's what the next step is here. Simulating a bank webhook. We'll see that next. But for now, we just at least have some processing these things over here. Transactions over here. Cool. Let me open chat one more time. We have 4 more minutes and then we will proceed. Unable to fit integer. That is an error that I have seen. Don't use integer. You're probably converting phone number to integer. It's a very big integer. So just use string wherever you're doing that conversion. Don't convert to number. I was just thinking, have I done the same? Probably not. But yeah, as you can see, it's telling you, 4554 is a very big string. So keep it a string. Do not convert it into a number. TypeScript, you're not able to seed your database. If you are not able to seed your database, Sohail, what you can do is, here is what I would do if I was in your position. I would open Visual Studio Code. I would go to the database, packages/db. And then I would run npx Prisma Studio. It would open a UI like this for me. And here I would start to add entries. Okay, add a record for, user with email, whatever. No email needed, name, Harkirat, or in your case, Sohail, number, whatever your number is. Password will be tricky for you. You will have to write some code to actually spit out a hashed password. Then put that here and click on save. That's how I would populate the users table. Or you don't need this, right? You can always you don't need seeded data. You can go to localhost 3001. You can try signing up and, that will create an entry for you. You won't have any balance. So those balances you can add here, once you have the user, just add a balance over here. Okay, add a record. User with ID 1 has 5,000 rupees. This is, 500 rupees, 2 zeros. And ignore logged for now and that's it. And save it. So whatever you're not able to seed, just put that here manually, right? If you're not able to seed, the only thing that'll be difficult for you to put here manually would be user. So just sign up on the platform, just go to the sign in page. It will create a user for you and then, explore the database from here. Blur screen, increase the pace a bit. I should actually do a poll. I also feel that it's going a little slow, but every time I feel that is not true and, it is still decently paced only. So let's do a poll and then based on that, we can increase the pace because there's a lot to cover. How's the pace? I thought I will be able to cover everything today. Slow, fast, perfect. All right. But yeah, based on the poll, I can increase or decrease. Oh, it is slow. Oh, no. Pretty varied. So 50% perfect, 25% fast, 25% slow. First time I'm seeing 25% slow. Usually it's much lesser. Which basically means, I'm assuming for the people for whom it is fast, you have missed a bunch of classes and suddenly a project has been thrown at you. So it'll of course be hard. So I'll increase the pace a bit because a lot of people, 25% feel it's slow, which means it's slow. But again, if it becomes very fast, happy to do an offline video next week. All right, cool. Or, go through this video after you've gone through the missing classes that you might have missed. With that, let's simulate the bank account now. If now you said it's very slow, Kirat, then let's increase the pace. What is happening right now? The thing that is happening is if I rerun the application locally, app/web, user app, npm run dev, what happens? An entry gets made over here in the user's transactions. If I go to transfers, an entry gets made over here, the balance never updates. Why? Because the user reaches the bank page but doesn't do anything. Harkirat, which means that does that mean if you do something over here, the database will update? No. We're just sending the user to a random HDFC page, right? What we need to do next is simulate a webhook. We need to simulate that the user went to HDFC page, did the real transaction, and then HDFC Bank hit our backend webhook handler and actually, told us that this was a successful transaction. Please give them 2,000 rupees more in their Paytm wallet. So let's test whether or not that's working already. We built this last week. Let's see if it's working or not. We have created a few processing transactions. If you want to test this with me, you can always, just open another terminal over here and then go to packages/db npx prisma studio. And you will see a bunch of processing transactions. The first two were dummy ones. They are successful. As you can see, success. One of them is success, one of them is failure. Everything else is processing right now. Let's try to convert one of these to success. Let's assume, HDFC Bank Pay, the user was able to do the transaction. And then HDFC Bank told us this transaction was successful. For that, if you remember from last week, we have another package here called bank webhook. So open another terminal, go to apps/bank webhook, and run npm run dev. This will start your bank webhook service, which is listening to requests from banks. Whenever the user goes to a bank and does the successful transaction, the bank server will hit this specific endpoint. And that's what we'll simulate right now. This isn't happening in the real world where we don't have a bank, but we're simulating the same request. So once this service is running, go to Postman or whatever your service is and hit http://localhost:3000/HDFC webhook. If you remember from last week, this was our webhook handler that would handle any requests coming from HDFC Bank that would tell us, this user with this token, with this amount has successfully made the transaction. Please update their balance, increase it by a little bit, and also set the on-ramp transaction to be status successful. So we just want to hit this endpoint and simulate the database fixing these things or adding the balance. So the way to do that, hit that endpoint with the post request with the right token. What is the token for that user? It is, let's say the last request is what we're trying to update. Put the token over here, a user identifier, the ID of that specific user. In our case, the ID is, one for that specific user in which we were sending on that transaction, and the amount that the specific transaction was for. What was the amount that the transaction was for? If you go to if you go to on-ramp transactions, this was for 40,000 or 400 rupees. The amount should be the third thing over here. If I click on send now with these inputs, this should actually, number one, convert this specific transaction, the last one, to successful. Should also add 200 rupees over here. So the user actually sees 600 rupees. All of these are still processing, but this one we're trying to set to successful and making sure the user's balance goes up. Let me send this request. It says message captured. If I refresh, I see 600 INR over here. And if I look into the database, it will say that this transaction was successful. If I go back to the database and refresh, you will see this became success. These are still processing, but this one became success. That is how you would, in the real world get hit by a banking webhook. That is exactly what happens when you go to harkirat.classes.co.in, click on buy now, and if I click on buy now and select, whatever, net banking and then HDFC Bank and click on pay now. Even if I close this page, I repeat, even if I close this page and I finish this transaction over here, HDFC Bank will eventually hit the backend of harkirat.classes.co.in. And then in that backend handler, we will give the user access to that purchase. So this is like common across payment platforms, because for a payment to happen, you send the user to a different page. Whenever it happens, that server hits your backend server. And then, you add that, you do whatever you're supposed to do for that payment, which in this case is giving the user access to the course. Cool. Hopefully that was clear. And that finishes on ramps, the first bug, which was this easy bug. The second one is a little elaborate. We'll see how far we can go, but this one is done. Let's see what the next issue is. Let's go to slide number 3. Let me also quickly do a poll to understand how many of you were able to understand it, but I'm hoping it was straightforward, because we did this last week as well. We're good to go, guys. All right. Decent, not great, but okay. We will proceed still, and then I'll do Q&A after we finish transfers. The next is a front end plus back end heavy issue. Again, most of you don't have any idea of how the front end is written. Some of you might who have gone through the slides from last week, but most of you don't know that originally the website has this much, just had 3 tabs. How do you add the 4th tab? How would you, given this is a feature requirement, you need to allow P2P transfers, peer-to-peer transfers. One peer on Paytm can send another person money from their wallet balance. How can you add this tab to the front end so that it finally looks like this? Okay, the user goes here, puts the number of the other person, puts the amount that they want to send, and then the money reaches the other side. Try to build this, everything yourself. Take 5 minutes, and at least this much try to create. Okay, how would you explore the code base to create P2P transfers? A new page that renders something here that where you can, put your logic eventually. This should be a hard task, considering, not a lot of you have gone through the UI. So try that for 5 minutes, and then I will target this issue myself as well. I'll do it very quickly now, but you can, take your time. I've also opened chat. Seeing 2 mouses on your screen. Show Postman, 1 second. Blurry screen. People are saying blurry screen. Let me stop screen share. If that is the case, I am doing a local recording. So, after the class, you should see a full HD recording. Someone said show Postman. This is what it looks like. Increase the pace. If you have seeding problems, then go to the seed file through the terminal. Yeah, just compile the seed file through the terminal and then run node index.js or node seed.js. That should do it as well. Can you suggest something to build? I'm thinking of getting my hands dirty in more practice. Okay, there's like a lot of, also there's something, credit card lock-in money. Sorry, did not understand the question. There's a lot of like project videos on my YouTube. Just go through one of them. How do bank server know webhook server address and API endpoint? Are we hitting the bank server from front end? No. Whenever you go to razorpay.com, whenever you talk to a bank and say, bro, we need your APIs, it gives you an input box where you put your webhook. If I sign in Razorpay right now and go to webhooks, there will be a section where I can paste my, api.harkirat.classx.co.in/Razorpay webhook. So I can paste this somewhere in the dashboard of Razorpay. That's how Razorpay knows that whenever the payment is done, hit the specific endpoint. So you tell them, you never hit them from the front end. Show Postman. Like 2 more minutes and then I'll start coding as well. I'll just copy paste code this time because it's fairly straightforward and we're going slow. So we should be able to get through it fairly quickly. Opening chat one more time. 2 more minutes, then we'll proceed. Reshare. Okay, let me stop sharing. Let me reshare. See if that fixes it. Did that fix blurry screen share? A lot of people are saying blurry screen share. No. Okay, not. Okay, let's do another poll. Poll. Are you seeing a blurry screen share? Yes or no? Oh. It's a pretty obvious yes. How long have you guys been seeing it? So काफी time से you did it happen recently or? Oh, not much time. Okay, happened recently. All right, cool. That's fine. We can wait a bit and we'll reshare in some time. Yeah, it's because of Zoom. But yeah, it's fine. I can also start streaming to YouTube or something. You can see there. But can you? Oh, sorry. There was a good question there. What if our Express server goes down for a day? Exactly. So bank will keep requesting. If you go to the dashboard of Razorpay, you can see a section that says webhooks. It'll show you all the requests that have gone out, and it'll keep re-hitting that request again and again. If your server is down for 10 days, then the bank will refund the money. The thing that happens is, unless you capture this request, bank will keep sending you this request. Unless you tell the bank, bro, message has been captured, or you tell them, status code 200. If you don't tell them this in the next 7 days, the money gets refunded automatically. This is why, if sometimes you're on Make My Trip and then, the transaction went through, but you don't see the transaction here, it automatically gets refunded because the webhook got missed for some reason. For some reason, the, Make My Trip webhook got hit, but the logic did not run. So it did not return message captured or, status code 200 to Paytm. To HDFC Bank. So HDFC Bank was like, this message wasn't captured, which means this user did not get his flights. So I'm going to return the 4,000 rupees, 400 rupees that this user gave in. That's how, these are the edge cases that you try to catch as much as possible on payments on the internet. But again, there are still edge cases where, you'll have someone who has paid but did not get access to the service, or vice versa sometimes as well. Did not pay but got the flight. Cool. Let's open chat one more time and see if the recording has been fixed. Let me screen share. Is the screen share fine? Yes or no? Fine. No. Nope. All right. Bunch of nope. Top right, bad box. Oh, okay. Hold on. Stop sharing. Okay. Can you guys put in Q&A? Is the screen fine now? Yes or no? No. All right. Let's take a pause here then, because there's no point. I have a local recording. I can just, answer a few questions and then quickly record the rest of it so you can watch it after the class. So let's take a pause and then we'll see where to go. For the people who are still curious, want to, run ahead, slides are there. They have everything. They have all the questions. Try to fix it. Create a PR. The repo is open. Zoom trying to hide our, okay. So let me pause chat here for a bit. What I'll do is I'll answer a few questions for however long, maybe 20 minutes more until 8:30. And then at 8, I can either at 8:30 record a video or we can do this tomorrow. Even though that's not great because, transfers are very big. P2P transaction table. We can do it tomorrow. I mean, yeah, the only thing is that we'll be able, yeah, it's fine. Cool. So let's do this. Let's call we'll try it again try screen sharing a bit again in a while, but if it doesn't happen, then let's just do Q&A for a while. Any questions related to this class? Otherwise, because 0 to 1 is about to end. So any feedback, any question, anything otherwise, let me know. Locks. Someone asked locks. That's a great question. Let me share a little bit. Of course, we'll cover it tomorrow. But if you want to run ahead, the third slide, I'm sharing my screen, but if you're not able to read it, it's fine. If it's blurry, it's fine. If you look at the third slide, adds transfers, this has locks. Or the logic to basically this line right here. Where is it? No, sorry, not the third slide. What was the third slide? Where is it? Transaction. Oh, solution. There you go. Hint 1, hint 2, solution. If I open solution, there you go. This line right here, or this solution right here, if you want to learn locking yourself, right, which even I did today as to how do you do locks in Postgres. I've done them in different databases, not in Postgres today. Try to do them yourself. They're in the third slide. What is the problem? Why does it happen? Is everything is here, but I'll cover this. We'll cover this tomorrow. Hopefully we don't have screen share issues tomorrow. Black box RI. Okay, I'm not sharing. It's fine. I've stopped screen sharing. Black box is a little weird. Yeah, I'll be in a different place tomorrow, so hopefully should be fine. With that, I will open chat for Q&A and then we'll cover locks and everything else tomorrow. Any other questions? 0 to 1 is going to be 2 more weeks, I think. So yeah, if for was asking, but yeah, let's see. All right. Materialized views. What about them? Any specific question? Where can you use them in this specific use case? Probably for time series data. Maybe. Let's see. Please explain again how the bank server knows about the webhook of Paytm API of Paytm. Also, the user details of Paytm aren't known to bank server. Yes, that's a great question. This is something we covered last week when we were doing architecture of how banks talk to users. So it is covered there. Let me give you a brief without sharing screen because I cannot. What happens is, bank is a very weird example. Let's take Razorpay. Razorpay is the same. You have a website like harkira.classx.co.in. You want to accept payment. So what you do is, number one, you sign up at Razorpay. Number two, you tell Razorpay, okay, bhai, I will send people to you. I will tell you their user ID. I will tell you their payment, how much money you have to debit from them. Please debit that money. Whenever you do, let me know कि हाँ भाई this user ID has paid this much money for this specific transaction. So whenever you are debiting money on the internet and you don't have your own bank, you have to use Razorpay, you have to use Stripe, or you have to directly use a banking API. Step number one is signing up on Razorpay or signing up with the HDFC folks, telling them that we have to accept payments. So please let me create a webhook. This is my webhook URL. Whenever I send a user your way and they make the payment, let me know on this webhook. So step number one is letting them know and giving them your webhook. Then when the user comes on your website, clicks on pay, you first tell HDFC Bank or Razorpay or Stripe that this user is going to come your way. Please charge him 1500 rupees. This is their user ID. HDFC Bank is like, cool, send them my way. Then you redirect the person to netbanking.hdfcbank.com !token equal to something, the token that you got from HDFC Bank. And then when the user succeeds with the payment, they hit your webhook with success. If the user fails with the payment, if the user does not have enough money, then Razorpay or HDFC Bank tells you payment failed. That's the high level of payments across. This is, if you want to try this out yourself, create a Razorpay account, create a Stripe account. Very simple to verify yourself there now. And try to accept 100 rupees payment from your friend for a service, and you'll understand this flow very well. I have a question on the starter kit. Why are we adding Tailwind CSS inside each application respectively? So why are we not adding a global package? You can add a global package. In fact, if you go to what's it called, dub.sh, they do the same thing. You can do it. No reason I did it. I thought I did it. Maybe I did not do it. Either way, yes, you can put everything inside a packages /tailwind config folder. That's exactly what, I'm not sharing my screen, but that's exactly what dub.sh does. I think it has fixed, a few people are saying. I can try one more time. I would love to proceed and cover at least some bits today, so tomorrow can be on something else. Just shared my screen, guys. Is my screen share good? Yes or no? No. All right. So we're not going to share then. Cool. Yeah, guys, Q&A let's do it until 8:30, and then let me record an offline video that covers maybe everything, if not everything, some part, so that tomorrow we can do something else, because I wanted to do CI/CD deployment of a project like this tomorrow. So would probably take back 30 minutes and just record the video offline in a better quality and just post it. So 15 more minutes. Any questions, please post. How can I deploy TurboRepo for free? You can deploy front end for free. Simple. Vercel, Netlify, both will support TurboRepo. Just select your root folder. Okay, this is the app I want to deploy. It will let you deploy. Backend for free. Express backend for free is tricky. I think Remix lets you do it. I could be wrong. What else can you use for deploying? I'm sure someone knows in chat. I mean, in the end, deploying a TurboRepo is no different from deploying a different application. You have an Express app, you have a front end, you have an Next.js application. Next.js application you can deploy for free. React application you can deploy for free. Well, free until a point, until you hit users. Then Vercel will charge you. And then eventually, something else. All right. Please explain the part you changed on add button.tsx. In add button.tsx, add button. The add button. Got it. So I went to the add money card.tsx, and basically I cannot share my screen, so it's a little hard for me to explain this. But if you go to slide number 2, you will see if you look at the on click handler of that button, I do a create on ramp transaction over there. All right, let me open chat. again, that is sort of, similar to sending a fetch request, just calling a server action. High level code review. Okay, let's see. Let's do it towards the end of the class. Okay, opening one time for, any questions you might have. I'll answer every question. Let's see. Red flow, a lot of questions. All right, pause. High level basic wallet application. Oh, someone created a very nice readme. I like it. Pretty cool. How these things are done in production? What is atomicity of ACID? How is it used? How is it used? A of ACID properties, which is performing transaction. So ACID has 4 parts, right? This is like, I have to also Google a bit here because it's been a while. ACID properties: atomicity, consistency, idempotency, and these क्या होता है? Durability. हाँ, तो I'll read it for you in front of you right here. Atomicity: the entire transaction takes place or nothing takes place at all. Whenever you are doing a transfer, you're sending money to your friend, you need to make sure if a plus 200 happened on them, a minus 200 happened on you as well. You cannot be like, bhai, minus 200 happened here, but the other user did not get a plus 200, which is why you need the 2 SQL calls to be atomic. Atomic means 1. Either both of them happen or none of them happen. ऐसा नहीं कि one happened, other did not happen. ऐसा नहीं कि they got 200 rupees, but I also have my original balance, which is why for an application like this, you need it to be not highly atomic, but like specific. This transaction needs to be atomic. What was your other question? A, how is it used? A of ACID properties, following a transaction. Okay, I guess that answers your question. If not, ask again. Is blurring because of privacy protection, that is hiding the create pool screen from others? What's the create pool screen? I'm not hiding anything. It's the same as usual. Yeah, but the good thing is I have a different Wi-Fi tomorrow. DSA info. There's this guy called, what's this guy's name? So Striver suggested him. It's a friend of Striver. He's done it in the past. Codenation, Google standard. He has some time now, so he said, I'll take live classes Tuesday, Thursday, start from the bottom, and in the next 4 months teach all of DSA. Might be a little fast, I don't know. Maybe 4 months isn't enough, but 4 months is originally what we're planning. Every Tuesday and Thursday live classes, which will be eventually posted as recordings. Yeah, what's the name? Soham. His name is Soham. The trial class will be coming Tuesday, and if you guys like it, then Soham will continue. Else, I'm talking to a bunch of other instructors as well. That's the current high level. What to do if you have indexed table heavily and yet the query which has multiple joins, 10 tables, almost takes a minute to return data? Indexing won't help you too much if you're joining 10 tables. I would just change my schema a bit if you're joining 10 tables, but let's see. The materialized views which are refreshed every 5 minutes still strain the database since the query is heavy. What else could you suggest should I do a data storage like S3, Apache? Okay. Step number 1, something you can do is if you're okay with asynchronous data creation. You said you're using materialized views. You said you're refreshing every 15 minutes. If you're okay with the data being created every 15 minutes, you can consider a ETL pipeline. Okay, you dump all the changes in a file. What is the name of this? Search for AWS Kinesis. It lets you do an ETL or use some other service, but pretty much the idea remains the same. If database is a certain way, and then a lot of requests are going to come that will change the data to something else, process them in batches together and create the final output, and then use that for the next 15 minutes, and then keep doing that. I would still first check. I could be wrong. It depends totally on your schema. Maybe you've over convoluted the schema. Maybe if you denormalize the database a bit, which I know sounds wrong. Okay, why would you denormalize the data? Because a lot of times, if you normalize it too much, joins become extremely heavy. Or a lot of times, your queries can itself be optimized. You might be writing queries that, do a n cross n, where you can do n plus m. If n are the number of entries in this table, m are the number of entries in this table. Look at your query if you can see, do an n plus m somehow. You said indexing is fine. You've sorted indexing. You've indexed all the right fields. So that's not the issue. The issue most probably is either your queries are done in a way where there are too many rows that are finally being generated n into m, or If there is no other way to fix this, then yeah, create an ETL pipeline that processes it every 15-20 minutes, and then there will be stale data for a while. How this thing is done? Okay, answer that. Can we get a webhook for UPI payments like Google Pay if I need a logic for the transaction success to someone's account to get received? That's a good question. If I send someone some money on Google Pay, Harkirat, can I somehow get a webhook? If you can do that, then you can create a payment gateway on your own, right? You don't need to pay Razorpay 2%. Everyone pays Razorpay 2%. If you currently buy a course on Harkirat.class.in, 2% goes to Razorpay. So if you, and 90% of the transactions are from UPI. So if UPI supported webhooks out of the box, then I would be saving 2% on every transaction. So I don't think it does. But if it does, you tell me. I'll integrate it directly into our website, because if UPI supports webhooks, it means you don't need payment gateways like Razorpay. You can directly accept UPI. I can simply be like, send money to Harkirat at HDFC Bank or whatever my UPI is. You guys can send me UPI. A webhook of mine will get hit, and I will give you the course access. I don't need Razorpay then. So I don't think you can do it. But I could be wrong. If I am wrong, let me know. Cool. Sir, could you please make a tutorial on Bun.js? Sure. Yeah, we should probably do it. Yeah, we should do it. How this, okay, answer that. YouTube stream. Small dot on Web3, the thing is closed. Like your Notion doc is closed. Data science, don't think I'm qualified to answer. Can we also have a answer that? YouTube stream, AMA. Please cover the project offline and take care of our CI/CD and Docker and AWS tomorrow. Cool. I think I agree. I'll just record the rest of it afterwards today, and then tomorrow let's do CI/CD because we've not touched that yet. And it's a good thing to have in 0 to 1. What to do if you have, okay, answer that. You can use railway.app to host a Express server for free. So I'd use that. And doesn't matter if it's in a monorepo or not. In the end, it's just Express server. How can you create a complex scheme and think about the architecture to build these types of applications? The architecture really revolves around two things, right? What is the schema? What are the services? What are the HTTP endpoints you'll be writing? So you just think about it, right? So for Paytm like application, I was like, okay, we need to support payments. We need to make sure banks can hit us. So we need another service, the webhook handler. And then you probably need to be a merchant API, need to be a merchant page. So you think from first principles. I think as you practice more, create like a social network. That's the best way to, because you have followers, followings, things like these. So it teaches you a lot on how databases are connected. And when you're building a social media app, let's say you have a video processing pipeline that gives you idea of some asynchronous backend handling. Yeah, when you build 3-4 applications, you get some first principles thinking around how to create any application, because in the end it's just schema design and architecture of what services to write. Last set, then I'll call it at 8:30 and then record the rest of it offline. The screen share was blocked by poll window that you opened, and people have gone unreasonably crazy saying it was blocked. It was perfect. Interesting. I saw 90% people saying, I don't know, but either way doesn't matter, dude. It's like, realistically, it doesn't matter if it's covered offline or live, right? In fact, you can ask more questions live. Questions, free alternatives for Timescale. Timescale is free. It's open source. You can host it yourself. As in free, as in it's like Postgres. So you don't have to pay for it. You just have to pay for compute, which you have to pay for any time series database that you might use. Other than that, just Google time series databases. I'm sure there are other that exist. Cool. We'll just call the AMA very soon, so I don't think there's any point going to YouTube now. The screen share, okay, answer that. Hi bro, did you get this error when using Windows and NPM only? Yes, this error. Oh, Windows and NPM only. No. What I can urge you to do is reinitialize a monorepo using Yarn, and then copy over all the changes. Don't replace just replace package.json, move from NPM workspaces to Yarn workspaces basically. And that might fix it. And then use Yarn install everywhere rather than using NPM install. That's what I would do to just get around it if it's taking you so long, and if NPM install is giving you the specific error. How can I utilize Elasticsearch as a search database and MongoDB as a primary database for social media application? What would be the best approach for managing data in both the databases? If you're using Elasticsearch or any search database, you can dump whatever you want there. For what was your application? social media application. What do people search on a social media application? They search for, Punjabi song, or your friend's name, things like these. So these requests, whenever you're searching in a search bar, should hit your Elasticsearch or whatever service you're using for search. Elasticsearch should never be your primary database. Your search database should never be your primary database, which is why MongoDB in this case makes sense. So you design your application as you would without search, and then wherever you're introducing search, right? If you're introducing search for usernames, if you're introducing search for posts that people are making, dump those things in Elasticsearch, and then all the search requests should go to Elasticsearch. All the other requests should go to MongoDB. I'm talking to one of my senior developers. He's saying Bun reduces CI/CD pipeline from 4 minutes to 20 seconds. Is that possible? Yes. What is Bun? It's a compiler of Node.js. Harkiyat, what is a compiler of Node.js? Do you guys remember V8? If you remember from the original classes, V8 was the thing that compiles JavaScript inside Chrome is V8. That got pulled out and Node.js was created. Now it's been 10 years that Node.js was created. This development was very slow. Someone said we will build a compiler of our own. You write JavaScript code, rather than compiling it using Node.js, you compile it using Bun. It will still do the same thing, but Bun is much faster. Why is Bun faster? They've made a bunch of optimizations. It's been written in Zig, yada yada. Doesn't matter. Since it is so much fast, and it's like incredibly fast when it's running tests, it makes the CI/CD pipeline extremely fast, because what usually happens in CI/CD pipelines is a lot of tests run. That's why, not surprising. A lot of people shared stories like these of, 4 minutes to 20-second build times. Cool. I got an interview here for technology head. I have very basic Web3 knowledge, don't have hands-on. Can you give some pointers? Yeah, I don't think they'll ask you anything hands-on, but whatever they do, what do they do here? Technology, view job. What does this company do? Strategic viewer. What's the name of the company? Yeah, it's too many. Okay. Figure out what the company does, and whatever they would, for example, if it's a layer 2, if it's a ZK rollup layer 2, then make sure you understand ZK, make sure you know what rollups are. If it's a layer 1 protocol, understand their consensus algorithm a little bit, understand why they're different from proof of stake. If it's a standard company that RPC provider, then know what RPCs are, how do you create an RPC, what are the methods that an RPC supports in Ethereum, on Solana, on various blockchains. You'll mostly be grilled on you won't be technically grilled code, show me the code. You'll probably be grilled on, do you even know this? Because most people don't even understand basic things in Web3. So whatever the company does, make sure you understand that well from a high level theoretical standpoint, even if you cannot code it. So that will be my 2 cents. All right, guys, let's call it here. I'm going to record an offline video covering everything that's left. Tomorrow, let's do CI/CD. Then we'll go from there. We'll call it here, guys. Thank you so much. See you guys tomorrow. A bunch of other questions. So let me just quickly look at them. New doc since the old one wasn't working. Let's see. Another doc by Javed. Can we get a webhook from Beam UPI? I need to ask you to send me money. User B. And this, I don't know the answer to this, basically, whether or not you can. I don't know Success Bank. Need for a Web3 project. I don't know if there is an easy way or a way at all to get a webhook hit whenever your friend sends you UPI money, which I guess is your question. I don't know if there's an easy way to do it. Cool. 2 Notion docs I'm looking at, then I'll call it. Notion doc number 1 says thanks to 0 to 1. What I learned from 0 to 1. I know all the basics and some advanced topics from YouTube, but while watching Hitesh after joining cohort, I found after having a mentor and guide is very much needed. You have changed my whole ideology on how to code. I do appreciate it. Thank you. It's very long, this thing. I'll read it very soon. Also, I was afraid I'm not able to understand 1 to 100, but I rarely understand your YouTube videos. But I joined because I believed in myself. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. And what's the other one? Small request related to Web3. How are you, Hakir? I'm good. Coming to the main point. I'm trying to get into Web3 a roadmap to get a job ASAP in Web3. I know it's some web dev. I've attended live classes, but not very confident. Correct. Cool. That's probably going to be, the next set of videos before the cohort launches. So yeah, there'll probably be one video, how to get job in Web3 2024. So, I'll probably be sharing everything there. But let's call it here, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll do some CI/CD. Let me finish the rest of the video locally. Bye bye.